Glenna Susan, who went by Sue Sharp, lived in Connecticut with her 5 children: Johnny, 15, Sheila, 14, Tina, 12, Rick, 10, and Greg, 5.
Too many kids.
So there are going to be a lot of names in this case, and I'm going to try my best to help you keep track of everybody, but you do kind of have to keep track
3.
of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she has, kids ranging in age from 15 to 5.
Okay. That's a lot.
3 boys and 2 girls. Okay.
No thanks. Okay.
And her husband, James Sharp. So living in Connecticut. But James was an abusive piece of shit. And so Sue decides to get the fuck out, and they separate, and she moves along with all her kids to Northern California in July 1979.
Okay. So this is the 70s.
Late 70s, early 80s. Case takes place in the early 80s.
Okay.
So they're moving west. They're starting fresh. She's got all her kids. She's away from her abusive piece of shit husband, and she's moving to California. Clear across the country.
Bye-bye.
To the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
It's right over there. Couldn't have been
Real
that hard.
close. Connecticut to California, apparently super close.
You can
The
walk.
U.S. is a super thin strip.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
It's a peninsula.
Fucking calm down.
First, she, carves California in a tree so everybody knows where she's going. No,
C-A-L.
C-A-L. And that was plenty. No, okay. So her brother Don was living out in California in a town called Quincy, and he was living in a sort of trailer in a pretty remote area. But he moved out of it so that Sue and the kids could live there temporarily while they got back on their feet when she's leaving this abusive marriage.
Nice.
Quote, Sue, eager to get her life together and find a way to support herself and her children, began taking typewriting classes and working a part-time job at the Quincy Elks Lodge.
Step it. Oh my God.
Sweet. It's like a Mary Chapin Carpenter song.
Oh.
So, but 6 people can't really live comfortably in a small trailer.
No.
So as soon as they could, the Sharps moved to a resort area in the Sierra Nevada mountains that was 10 miles away. They had a small cabin / house that had just become available in the town of Keddie. Keddie was an old railroad depot town, and today it has a population of 66 people. So I'm guessing there were even fewer back then.
Wow.
Jesus. Okay.
Basically, there are all these kind of run down cabins in an area that used to be a resort area.
Sure. Yeah.
But now it's been converted to low income kind of rural housing in the woods.
It used to be Dirty Dancing, and now it's Jersey Dancing.
Not quite. Yeah, there are pictures on the drive of these cabins. Kind of looks a little bit like the house I grew up in a little bit. But it's
Okay, but that's like Dirty Dancing, the little summer cottages
little
on the
summer
lake.
cottages that are a little run down, and
This doesn't look anything like your house.
no, but from the front a little bit. Okay,
A cottage.
it's a yeah.
Your house was way cute.
My house was super cute. I didn't mean it. Whatever. It's fine. So, fuck you, Don Shelby. At least the new home was much larger than the trailer, and it actually had become available because the local sheriff at the time had just moved out. So on the early afternoon of April 11th, 1981, 36-year-old Sue, 14-year-old Sheila, and 5-year-old Greg drove from their friend's house to go pick up the 10-year-old Rick from his baseball tryouts in Quincy. Okay? As they're driving, they come across their brother John, 15, and his friend Dana Hall Wingate, who is 17. Note here, Dana is a boy.
Okay.
So the mom and some of the kids are going to pick up another kid at his baseball tryouts, and on the way, they run into her oldest kid and his friend hanging out, trying to hitchhike.
On the road? Oh,
Yeah, they're hitchhiking
Okay.
back and forth between these two towns, Quincy and Keddie.
Got it.
So they were hitchhiking from the mouth of the canyon in Quincy back to Keddie, which is about a 10-minute drive. And this is something that they did all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Sue, hashtag such a mom, picks up her son and his friend and then drives them back home. Like, you're hitchhiking and your mom picks you up.
Yep.
How great.
Different times.
Yeah.
Roll different.
So around 3:30 p.m., John and Dana hitchhike back to Quincy because they had plans to hang out with their friends downtown. And witnesses saw them in Quincy doing the hanging out that afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So they made it. That evening, the youngest boys, Rick and Greg, so the 10-year-old and the 5-year-old, are allowed to have a sleepover. They're allowed to have their friend Justin Smart Eason,
Aw.
he was like a neighbor boy, sleepover. He lived close by with his mother, Marilyn, and his stepfather, Martin Smart. And Smart is spelled with 2 T's. Smart.
Swart.
Martitin Smartitin.
Martitin Smartitin.
Smartitin.
There's going to be more about Martitin Smartitin later on.
I thought as much.
Okay. So, meanwhile, Sheila, the oldest daughter, had planned a sleepover at her friend's house, the Seabolts, a few lots over or maybe next door. I've read both reports. So
This is starting to sound a lot like me going off to have sex with my boyfriend and telling people all the different places I was sleeping over where I wasn't actually
it
sleeping
sounds, when you write it out, it sounds a lot more confusing than it was.
Yep.
Basically, the girls were like, it was, like, okay, sleepover time. Sheila
Yeah, we're
wants
doing our thing here.
Sheila wants to sleep over at her friend's house at the Seabolts. The boys are going to have their friend over to their house for a sleepover.
Yeah.
And the oldest kid, the teenager, is off, hanging out with his friend, whatever.
Doing their thing.
thing.
And this is all in the small town.
All within these 2 small towns that are 10 minutes drive from each other.
Okay.
But the sleepovers are all within this Keddie, very small area. All these basically just different like cabin houses.
Got it.
They all still actually had numbers. So they lived in number 28.
Aw,
And they had friends in like number 16 and number whatever.
that's cute.
Cute.
Yeah. So Sheila, the oldest daughter, leaves her house around 8 p.m. and walks over to the Seabolts' house.
Mhm.
And Tina, the other daughter, was 12. She was already at the Seabolts at that time watching TV and hanging out. And Sheila gets there and she's like, Mom wants you home. Like,
Leave us alone.
Okay.
leave us alone. You can't be here for our sleepover. Go home.
That is a big sister thing to do.
Right. So Tina, 12, walks the very short distance back home at around 10 p.m. and goes back to her house. So at 7 a.m. the next day, the morning of April 12th, Sheila, the 14-year-old, leaves the Seabolts. She had her sleepover. It's the next morning. She goes back to her house and, to her unimaginable horror, was greeted by the bodies of her mother, her older brother John, and John's friend Dana, all dead.
Ooh.
Oh, shit. Okay.
What about the little boys?
We will get to it.
Oh, no.
So the murders had been especially vicious. Blood was everywhere.
Oh, Jesus.
There were knife marks across the walls.
Ew.
There was like I read some reports said like a butter knife. There was like some kind of knife. To me, it looked like more than a butter knife, but some kind of knife like half jammed in the floor.
No.
Oh.
No, I don't like
So
that.
just a frenzy.
Yeah.
It's very gross.
Messy. Couch cushions off the couch and blood stained. And all 3 had been bound with medical tape and electrical cords.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh my God.
2 bloody knives.
The electrical cords feel like
That's what was there.
convenience. Like that was what was there. Yeah, the medical tape is weird.
I mean, it also could have been found at the scene if they had like a first aid kit or something.
I suppose, but it seems like a lot.
No.
You need a lot of tape because medical tape is like easy to tear.
And
Right.
the
Intentionally.
little sample roll.
Right. So you need kind of a lot of
To
it to truly bind someone
find
with
3 people.
Yeah.
And they were all basically adults. I mean, John was 15.
Yeah,
but-
it's odd. I don't get it. I don't like it.
Sue was, 2 bloody knives and a bloody hammer were found on the
Oh.
scene.
Yikes.
Sue was found lying in the living room, nude from the waist down, but no other signs of sexual assault were detected. So either she was like made to look like she was sexually assaulted, or someone was interrupted, or
Yeah.
she'd been gagged with a bandana and her own underwear, like shoved in her
Ugh.
mouth, and then her
Ugh.
mouth taped over with duct tape.
Fucking yuck. God.
She'd been stabbed through her larynx so deep it actually nicked her spine.
No.
Ooh.
No. This is disgusting.
Yeah. John's throat was slashed, and Dana had multiple head injuries. They think from the hammer,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a claw or ball hammer. I don't know types of hammers. A hammer. Probably like right here-ish area. And had also been strangled to death. But Tina, the 12-year-old, was nowhere to be found.
Oh, God.
And the sheets on her bed were blood-stained. But they found out later forensically that this was not her blood.
Okay.
But probably from the killers getting so much blood on them from
Yep.
stabbing
victims.
Sue and, John and Dana.
Maybe it happened at 10. She saw it from outside the window and she ran away. She probably wouldn't have waited till the next morning to find her sister, though.
That's not what happened. And we know
okay.
that now. But could,
All right, this one is actually solved.
it's not really solved, but we do know that that did not happen.
Okay.
Bizarrely, the youngest boys, so Rick and Greg and their friend Justin, were there in the other room unharmed. In the bedroom, in the bunk beds, sleeping.
Oh, sleeping?
What?
Seven-
That's almost the weirdest detail.
God.
And how did they not wake up with how violent and horrific? I mean, I know I'm a heavy sleeper, but
Maybe the TV was on. They just didn't hear it. I don't know.
that seems very weird.
So obviously Sheila is in shock, but she bolts back to her friend's house. And Jamie Seabolt, I read some reports that he's the father, but actually I think he's the oldest son of that family, goes back with her. She goes back and is like, oh my fucking God, my family, whatever. And then by the time she gets there, she's like, shit, the boys, like, where are the boys? Where's Tina? Like she doesn't know yet. And so Jamie Seabolt goes back with her to like see what the fuck's going on. And they peek into the boys' bedroom window and they saw that Rick, Greg, and Justin were sleeping safe and sound. And so they woke them up and had them climb out through the bedroom window out of the cabin so that they
see it.
so they wouldn't have to witness the crime scene in the
my
living room.
God.
Yikes.
Oh, that's sad.
And later on, Jamie Seabolt also admitted that he walked into the house through the back door, which contaminated some of the crime scene. But like, I think he had to see for himself
You're probably not thinking about that at
what
the
had
time.
happened. Like he might have done that first, honestly, and then been like, "Oh my fucking God," and then went out around the back and looked in through the window.
That's also kind of a hard scene to not contaminate if there's like blood and shit everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. Everything you touch, everything you step on is part of the crime scene.
Right. So after interviewing all of the neighbors, few clues surfaced. There was some unhelpful speculation that the crimes might have been ritualistic or drug related, because again, it's like the early 80s.
Satanic panic.
Right. And also like one friend of the family claimed that John's friend Dana, who was 17, had stolen LSD from local drug dealers, but she wasn't able to give any proof of this claim.
And also, it just seems almost too violent to be that. I don't know.
Was it kind
It
of
just
like
doesn't add up to me.
Kind of like a lower socioeconomic area too?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably adds to both of those rumors.
Like the stigma, like, oh, it was like drug related or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, could be.
Poor people who live in a trailer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the police did look into these claims extensively, and supposedly they spent like 4,000 man hours following it up, but it led nowhere. The Seabolts said that they had seen a green van parked at the Sharps' house at around 9 p.m. that night. But both Sheila and the Seabolt family said that they didn't hear anything out of the ordinary that night. However, a couple in a nearby cabin said that they woke up briefly around 1:15 a.m. because they'd heard what they thought might be muffled screaming. But they weren't They weren't totally sure at the time. The noise ended quickly, and then they'd gone back to bed.
Ugh.
So I could see you being like, "Did I hear like?"
No. All right, I'm going back to
I guess
sleep.
everything's fine. I'll go back to bed.
Well, and if it's like a wooded area, you got fucking like dogs and coyotes
Rabbits
and even
dying.
like rabbits dying. Yeah, sounds like a child screaming.
Or people watching TV.
Mm-hmm.
Or you think you might have been dreaming and you wake up and you're like, oh, it stopped. Conk back
It was
out.
in my dream. Yeah.
Right. But when Martin Smart, Justin's stepdad, claimed that a claw hammer had gone missing from his house, he unwittingly became the prime suspect. The murder weapons hadn't yet been disclosed to the public, so the fact that he mentioned a missing hammer.
Specifically.
Who notices a missing hammer?
That's a little shady. That's definitely a little shady.
Not so smart.
I wouldn't.
No.
Not so smart to. Apparently, investigators felt that Martin was maybe being a little too helpful. Sheriff,
Oh, weird. A murder weapon that no one's mentioned is actually curiously missing from my toolbox.
I just wanted to let you guys know that I don't have a hammer because it is
Right.
missing.
Right.
Okay, Martin.
So Sheriff Thomas said later that Martin had given the police, quote, endless clues in the case, which may have been an effort to throw suspicion away from himself.
What?
But Martin took a polygraph test and passed.
This is why you never help the cops, because it's going to look sus no matter what.
Also,
them come to
polygraphs
you.
are-
Don't
are
talk
bullshit.
to the police. Yeah.
But I mean, if you
It is shady.
if you think Martin is innocent, I mean, put yourself in his shoes. His stepson was there somehow unharmed. These are his neighbors and friends.
He's trying to help.
Right. If you think
Yeah.
he's guilty,
He's offering too much information. It's sketchy. Yeah. I totally get it.
right?
He could have also
yeah.
been one of those people who has like the pegboards in your garage, and then you know how like old men will like
Oh, they're
outline
very
every
organized.
tool to put it back where it goes.
Mm-hmm. So it'd be obvious that he was missing a hammer because of the organization.
Could
Sure.
have been.
Could
Could have been.
Could have been.
Maybe.
Could have been.
Maybe.
I would not notice a missing hammer, but I would notice like my missing good scissors,
For sure.
Oh,
you know.
Stuff you use all the time. Maybe
Right.
he uses his hammer all the time.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Justin, the friend that stayed over but was unharmed, gave different reports of the night. First, he said that he'd like slept through the whole thing. Then later he was having like nightmares about the murders. And then he said that he'd seen the murders.
Mm.
But he's like,
Is this like an 8-year-old?
yeah, he's
he's
like
a
a 10-year-old,
kid.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So him changing his story is not nearly as suspicious as like
Well, it's not
if an adult was
suspicious,
doing
He
it.
But-
didn't
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
No, but it's not like weird, I guess. As weird.
He also like if he was in fact sleeping through these murders, and his
You later
subconscious
hear
is
about the murders.
but also his subconscious is hearing, and maybe his brain is in his dreams putting together like some scenario.
Sure.
He
Sure,
could have been
in
a
the-
crazy dreamer like I am. I can see that happening.
Or, you know, he has these nightmares later on because like he knows that these people got murdered even if he didn't see it happen. You're
Yeah.
going to have nightmares. You're going to hear things that the adults are saying.
Right.
But he provides more details when he's under hypnosis, saying that sounds woke him up in the middle of the night, and while Greg and Rick were still sleeping, he'd left the bedroom and saw Sue Sharp with 2 men, one with long hair and the other with short hair and a mustache, both wearing glasses. Justin further claimed under hypnosis that John and Dana came into the room and started arguing with the two men. And then Tina came into the room and was whisked out of the cabin's back door by one of the men.
Oh.
So
Is Tina the
12-year-old
one who came,
who's missing.
who's missing? Okay.
Yeah, she'd come home and then it sounds like she like made it home because it's a short walk and she went at 10 p.m. and this was in the middle of the night.
Got it.
Justin's description of the men was given to a man named Harlan Embry to make a composite sketch. Embry sometimes volunteered to help local police, but he was an untrained and by all accounts talentless artist.
Oh, God.
So go look at this.
Give it to that guy.
No, give an amateur sketch.
This is an amateur sketch of the two suspects.
This amateur oh, no.
I mean, it's like
No.
it's like what I could achieve, which is a talentless, useless. Didn't even attempt the eyes.
This is rough.
I mean, you can kind of get some information from this.
I like
I'm
it.
adding the Leprechaun amateur sketch to your drive.
Most people would do worse, I would say.
Right. You can like bone structure, Adam's apple.
Yeah, but why was this
Mustache.
guy given
Well,
this
That's
responsibility?
a great question.
This is amazing.
So no one from the investigation has ever explained why police decided to go with Embry instead of, an actual fucking professional sketch artist for this horrific triple homicide and child abduction. Like they couldn't have gotten the real thing.
Use any any real resources.
We'll give this
please.
guy a go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably because this is in a fucking poor community, and so they don't give a fuck.
Yep. So at first, Tina's disappearance was investigated as an abduction because we don't have any evidence that she is dead. But on April 22nd, 1984, 3 years after the murders, a bottle collector found a portion of a human skull and part of a mandible about 80 to 100 miles outside of Keddie.
Oh.
Whoa. That's a long ways away.
Yikes. Okay.
Shortly
Basically
after
at the Pacific Ocean.
basically middle of the ocean.
The other side
Actually,
of the
Atlantic.
country.
Yeah, back the other way.
Right. So shortly after this discovery, an anonymous call came to the county sheriff's office speculating that these remains might belong to Tina. Do you guys want to do voices?
Yes.
Well, I sure hope you liked that clip. If you did like that clip, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us a nice review, and joining us on Patreon for even more video content, audio content, salacious content all around. Come join us. Treat yourself.